Hello, West Ham Network. It's Holly, and I'm here to chat about our midfield today. So, after Lopetegui took Guido Rodriguez off against Chelsea, it made it quite clear that he doesn't really know his starting 11, and in particular, his chosen midfield. Now, 5 games in, we look like we're still trying to work this all out, which is obviously a little bit of a concern. And while we knew we had to be patient, it's now starting to ring the alarm bells for a lot of people. Lopetegui also mentioned making changes in his presser, and it sounds as though we could have more options throughout our team that we can use, with Fulkrug being fit again. We've got the likes of Soler and Todibo that have both had more time now to hopefully fit into the squad. But the question is, how does this mean we're actually going to set up? So today we are going to be discussing our midfield dilemma. So we saw against Chelsea that our team is almost split into two, and this is one of the problems that we're facing. We've got our defence and we've got our attack, and at the moment they feel like two really separate units with very little in the middle there to actually connect. We've not got the ability to get defenders playing the ball forward, and we've not really got the link up between them and the attacking players. So we saw Alvarez dropping into that back five, which means that we ended up with Guido Rodriguez, that's quite a mouthful, protecting our defence, who isn't quite up to speed yet, which obviously made it even harder. And we saw Alvarez getting caught out and lots of challenges in terms of that. We also kind of had Paqueta dropping back to help. But again, he's a player that does quite often give possession away, so that doesn't necessarily fix the issue of us getting attacked. But if it does work, it could be that it helps the issue of us being able to get forward with the ball on the ground. So it's kind of a two-sided challenge. I think when we have the ball, we're not able to bring it forwards on the ground, and then in defence, Chelsea were able to just play it through our lines, because again, we're working as almost two separate units, and we've got that big gap there for them to exploit and just pass through the middle of. So the question is, how should we actually be setting up in midfield? And there are, of course, other players that can get added into the mix. For example, James Ward-Prowse could eventually, because he's on loan at Forest. Potts could also be involved if he wasn't out on loan. And then we've got options like Lewis Orford. So there are options, and Lopetegui's definitely got some working out to do when it comes to his chosen midfielders. So first, let's have a little chat through the options that we've got. So first, we've got Alvarez and Souček, and this is what we reverted to when we took off Rodriguez. It was obviously a big statement taking off Rodriguez, and I'm sure he'll have been disappointed, but essentially he was being ineffective. However, bringing Souček on for him, is that more effective? I do not know about that. But it felt like we just struggled to link up play. And we all know that Souček is not a ball-playing defensive midfielder. He is one that runs a lot. He does a lot of work off the ball. But if you're struggling to bring the ball up the pitch, he's not the player that you bring on. He can, however, get goals. And we were chatting about this in a live stream the other day. I think one of the reasons that Souček does keep getting game time under managers is he puts in the hard work, he trains hard, he gives 100%, not that it's necessarily enough for us to be able to succeed in games, but he puts in that work. And if you actually look at the stats, he does get a fair number of goals. So stats-wise, it's hard to ignore. But when you actually watch it, and we were talking as well about how there's two sides of a game. There's the winning and the getting points, and then there's the way in which you get those points, the way you play, whether we're inspired by playing attacking football, which is one of the major criticisms, going off on such a tangent, that Moyes had, was that we weren't playing in a style that filled us with confidence. Yes, we did pick up points here and there, but did we have a way that we thought, this is the West Ham way, this is how we're playing, and this is what we're going to do? No. And that was one of the major problems, was the way that we set up didn't fill us with confidence or excite the fans. And I think when we bring Souček in, you find the same thing, that he will get the occasional goal. He will get goals at the end. He can get on the end of set pieces. But does the way that he play make us play a nice way of football? I think that's where we find the challenges. So this pairing, Alvarez and Souček, bringing it back to what I was saying, it brings issues in terms of us being able to actually link up play. Then you've got Alvarez and Rodriguez. So in theory, sounds very solid, more defensive, but they both played together before they came to West Ham, which was something that I thought was quite exciting, because hopefully they would link up well together. In reality, it doesn't help our attack at the moment, and Rodriguez almost needs to have that preseason that he didn't have, because he didn't have a preseason with Betis. He came to us, and he's just struggled so far to make an impact, which happens sometimes with players. It's understandable. But while they're both defensive players, if they can get working well together and working well with the players around them, it doesn't mean that they can't play a progressive pass or go on a run. And we've seen Alvarez do that at times. So it's not necessarily that playing two defensive midfielders is the problem. I think it's the difficulty is when both of them are not progressive defensive midfielders, you kind of end up just stagnating in that area of the pitch. We've got Alvarez and Paqueta. So talking about how we can sort of bring other players into it, that gives us a ball-playing midfielder further back, but it could also help us to link up the play that we've been saying, obviously, we're struggling with. But Paqueta can also give the ball away a fair bit, which, ahead of a shaky defence, leaves us very much open to conceding. And for that reason, I don't think it's currently an option that benefits us against good sides that are really, really attacking us, because I think it's something that can just lead us to basically getting our defence attacked very quickly. And at the moment, we're not at the point that we want to be, where we're confident. We're confident that they can actually defend against a break. But I think it's something that we could definitely exploit against the weaker sides, or when we're on the front foot, or if we need to get a goal to rescue points or anything like that. I think it's worth throwing that into the mix to see what we can do. We could, of course, use Soler, who is more attacking and more creative, and someone that I'm really excited to see us use more. But it wouldn't necessarily provide backup for Alvarez, because he's going to be the one probably pushing forward more. And then last but not least, Andy Irving. He completed 100% of his passes as well against Chelsea, which is very interesting to see. So we do have options. And I think the likelihood is that we will play with two defensive midfielders, but formations aren't as rigid as they used to be. So in that case, excuse me, Paqueta needs to drop back in with those two so that we can carry the ball forward from there. And we've seen as well over the last few seasons, we can play very fluid football, but currently it's just not linking up. And I think fixing this defensive midfielder question is a major part of helping that to click. And I think the biggest challenge that we had against Chelsea was our inability to just bring the ball forward effectively through the middle. We had Somerville trying it on the wing. So we did try things. We saw a few games back, we were playing more long balls, which scared me, but it's good to see that we are trying to bring it down. I just think we need to find what the style of play is. And currently, the way that we are trying lots of different people in different positions, I don't think sets us up very well, because for us to be able to carry the ball nicely on the pitch, you need to be able to predict what other players are going to do. You need to know how other players play. Some players are new, some players are in different positions. Some players are just learning to sort of get back to grips with things. Some players are low in confidence. And all of those things just do not equate to a team that plays really fluid football. So this is what I'm really hoping that we can get. But I think if we keep chopping and changing formation, changing players, changing who players have around them, they're not going to have that natural instinct of where the ball goes, where to pass the ball, where to play it, where to run. And I'm really hoping that that's something that we can kind of secure and start to make less changes in, so that we can actually start to progress rather than just sort of throwing things and seeing what sticks. So that's my theory. We've got a lot of options, and to make this work in an ideal world, I'd love to try all of them. I'd love to try different pairings. I'd love to try different players in different positions and see how they link up, and maybe push someone up and try different tactics alongside that. But we're not going to have time to find that perfect formula. And it's going to be essential now that we try and pick up some form in our upcoming games. Obviously, we did have the preseason. We're 5 games in. It's very soon to be panicking completely and saying that a manager needs to leave or anything like that. I just think that if we start getting to 10, 15 games and we're really struggling to find that form, things are going to start feeling like they're turning, and then you're sort of fighting against the tide. And I don't want to get to that point as a club, because I think we've got a really exciting project. We've just invested so much money behind a manager that we believe is capable of doing this. We've got a system now to bring in more players. But the missing puzzle piece is it all clicking. And the question is, can Lopetegui do that? And I think as the games go on, we're going to find it getting more and more pressured, I suppose. And the next couple of games are games that we should win. So these are going to be 2 massive games for us. Whereas previously, I don't think we'd have seen them as huge games. This is now like the start of a proper mission that we have got to get some points on the board there. And I think more importantly than points, not more importantly than points, obviously we need those points. We're like, is it 14th? I can't even think now in the Premier League. But we need to start finding the way in which we're going to play, because then we can tweak things and we can make changes, but it's not going to feel so slapdash. And I think for me, the only thing that's been bringing fear in terms of what Lopetegui's project is and the direction in which we're going is that I can't see which direction we're going. I'm not quite sure what our starting lineup is. I'm not quite sure the way in which we play. I'm not quite sure what the tactics are, or how we could even switch it up between different games, because I can't see what it is that we're doing, because at the moment it just feels like there's a lot of things that need to be fixed for us to say, oh, our defense is solid. Like we've had it before where we said our attack is great but our defense is weak, or our defense has been solid at times and our attack we've just struggled to link up, or we've struggled to be clinical in front of goal. I can't quite spot what the things are that we've got sorted. It feels like everything just needs that bit of improvement, but it might be the smallest change that will suddenly click, or just a little bit more confidence from a really good performance. And I felt like we had a good performance against City, and I was hoping that that was going to be the turning point where we go, okay, like we're doing something good here, because we did attack throughout that game, and it felt like we had a lot of positives to take from that despite the scoreline. So there are things that we can take, and I'm hoping that this will be the beginning of a turning point, that hopefully in the coming weeks we will start to see what we're doing. The question I've got for you is, how should we set up our midfield? What should we do? Let me know in those comments, because personally, I would like us to have a creative player as one of our defensive midfielders so that we can bring them up and we can pull them back. But that does rely on us having somebody that's solid enough in defence doing that, but good enough creatively to push forward and having the fitness to get up and back. But it's something that I want us to try. Instead of us chopping and changing too often, I struggle to see how that approach is going to help anyone gain confidence and knowing what to do around the other players, and help them read it. So I'm just hoping that we can sort of find a little bit of consistency and then make tweaks, rather than feeling like we're just going, that's not working, get rid, start again. There are positives in terms of, I suppose, Lopetegui making changes early when he sees that something isn't working. But obviously, I think the bit that we were missing is making the right change to make the impact. I think when we can see that the changes that are made have the desired effect, that will be when the confidence comes. But that's my thoughts. I want to know yours though. So drop us a comment and let us know what you think. And if you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up so we know you've enjoyed it. If you're new around here, make sure you subscribe, drop those comments, get involved in the conversation. And until next time, join me at 5 p.m. for your Hammers headlines. Come on, you Irons.